It's 2003 and audiences and critics are loving Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl. This unlikely adaptation of a theme park ride has somehow managed to be an unexpected popcorn masterpiece, the perfect combination of swashbuckling action, swooning romance, and soaring music, all tied together with a central performance so iconic it would remake and ruin an actor simultaneously. It's also a wild hit, making over $600 million worldwide. So, naturally, there needs to be more. And since it's the mid-aughts, we have to make two more, back to back. Because by God, it worked for Lord of the Rings and The Matrix, and Disney needs some of that sweet, sweet pirate money. And what if those movies were more everything? More action, more romance, more of that character we just couldn't get enough of. Stuffed to the gills with everything that so enamored audiences the first go around. Cut to 2007, and, well, the answer is they'd both meh themselves across or near the $1 billion worldwide mark, and completely fall out of the public consciousness within the decade. Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest and At World's End, the two wildly successful but forgotten sequels to the beloved original, were both dismissed as overlong, overcomplicated, and not nearly as engaging as the first film. Now it's 2022, almost 20 years, oh god, I'm crumbling into ash, since the original film, and I'm here to say we got it wrong. Big time. Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest and At World's End are self-aware and sprawlingly brilliant films that embody the end of a beautiful era of luxury blockbusters. Films that spent their extravagantly large budgets with style, precision, and a commitment to pure audiovisual pleasure. What if we didn't appreciate what we had when we had it? When compared to today's tame, clinical modern blockbusters, those two pirate sequels represent one of the boldest gambles Hollywood ever made on a filmmaker, and Gore Verbinski played for keeps with his dogged sense of chaotic control.
Just take a moment to enjoy the fact that we will never make a film this big, ever again in your life. It's the end of an era, my friend.
Now, before I get too far into lavishing praise on these movies, I want to take a bit here and address the Johnny Depp of it all, and the Jeffrey Rush of it all, and I guess the Terry Rossio of it all too. God, Hollywood can be trash sometimes. Anyway, all these guys are unpleasant in multiple credible ways, and that sucks. It mars the legacy a bit. That being said, film is a collaborative art form. These things had literally thousands of cast and crew members who each left indelible marks on the films, so we'll try to highlight the people who aren't the worst here. Still, I get it. It feels icky. Spoils the fun of it. If someone wanted to discard the films because of that, it would be fair. Also, if you can't vibe with these movies because some of the weirder and more problematic bits of cultural and racial portrayals, that makes sense too. Not excusing any of that here, kind of one of the unfortunate things that happens when you drudge up the things you remember from the past. Nothing survives unscathed, so no worries. Modern blockbusters are wildly expensive, but not pretty? Hollywood spends a lot of money on blockbusters, and a lot of money on CGI in said blockbusters, but they pretty consistently look like garbage. This point has been done to death by other, better YouTubers you should definitely watch, especially Patrick H. Willems' 2016 video, Why Do Marvel's Movies Look Kind of Ugly? But it's a going concern. Look at the top 10 highest grossing live-action films of the 2010s. Not a one of them has cinematography that you could describe as anything but fine. With the exception of Denis Villeneuve, the Bond series, and Christopher Nolan when he's working with Wally Feister, we're not getting a lot of Hollywood movies with $100 million plus budgets taking big swings at a capital L look. But before about 2013, we had an entire range of blockbusters that I like to call luxury cinema. Luxury cinema does not look like garbage. Luxury cinema exists at the nexus of storytelling joy and pure hedonistic audiovisual pleasure. This dying genre of blockbuster is full of films that feel like events, and they do everything in their power to convey that visually. This event mentality is similar to what we see these days with epic team-up Marvel films, but the pomp and circumstance only extends to the characters, never the filmmaking. It's never, how can we make this once-in-a-franchise event feel distinct, so much as it's, how can we make this once-in-a-franchise event feel consistent with the rest of the franchise? The pirate sequels, on the other hand, are luxury cinema at its most luxurious. They're painterly, fascinating, and right in that sweet spot of mid-aughts filmmaking where digital color correction was hitting its stride, but everybody was still shooting on film, which gifts us with a set of movies that are beautiful mirrors of each other color-wise. Dead Man's Chest runs the gamut of lush greens, oranges, browns, and blacks, while At World's End is awash in steely grays, blues, and browns. They're considered palettes that are meant to differentiate and complement each other. They use their palettes to help tell the story effectively. They also throw so much CG wizardry at the screen without succumbing to the plasticky CG goop that has consumed contemporary film. And look, I know it's easy to say CGI bad. It's pretty fair. CGI is often bad. But here, the CGI is good. Great even, well, with the exception of a shot or two. Pirates 2 and 3 use CG effects to make the impossible possible, not just make the difficult easier. The execution on Davy Jones is perfect. Even 15 years on, there's something about the combination of performance and animation here that rivals anything I've seen in the last decade, especially when it comes to complete character animation. Dead Man's Chest won the VFX Oscar in 2007, but At World's End lost to The Golden Compass, which looks dreadful. So it goes. Maybe it just felt passé to give it to the same series twice in a row. I'm not an Academy voter, no matter how many times I complain about it on Twitter. In terms of technical production, the Pirate sequels excel at every level. The costumes are rich and distinctive, the sets are lovingly crafted, the sound design and mixing is top-notch. Grumble, grumble, you can hear the dialogue and it isn't buried in channel 4000 of an indecipherable Dolby Atmos mix, the old man complains, yelling at clouds. And the editing is zippy without being overly choppy, lingering on the lovely wide shots so you can see the finer details of the pristinely choreographed sword fighting. When you have over $400 million to split across 2 films, you have the ability to spend your way out of problems. Thankfully, this didn't seem to be the mindset on the Pirate sequels. Every dollar is on the screen. No expense was spared on solving the problem at the moment during production, as opposed to papering it over later in post-production, and a lot of that has to do with the commitment of the cast and crew, especially director Gore Verbinski. I've covered Gore before when I discussed his criminally underrated debut, Mouse Hunt. It's a hoot, check that review out. I've linked it in the description and added a link in the little link thingy that pops up in the corner. Before Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl, Verbinski had directed exactly 3 films: Mouse Hunt, The Mexican, and The Ring. Not exactly a blockbuster career, but it was clear that he was a filmmaker with a vision. Producer Jerry Bruckheimer took a real gamble on both the dead and buried pirate genre and Gore Verbinski, and it turned into a franchise that would go on to gross over $4.5 billion at the box office. This is why the death of the mid-budget movie is so deeply terrifying. They're a proving ground for filmmakers to stretch their legs and really find a vision. This pipeline of Sundance directors going from making million-dollar movies where they have to scrounge just to tell the story they need to tell, to being the babysitter for a $250 million glorified TV series finale, is sapping the film industry of the sorts of strong creative forces that dream up the unexpected hits that turn into eternal cash cows. It's short-sighted business. Gore made that leap from $45 million movies to $150 million movies seamlessly, and he made the leap to $300 million look effortless. Nobody spends money on screen better than Gore Verbinski. He's a master craftsman of grand emotional spectacle. His filmmaking is a perfect synthesis of the soaring, sentimental dreamscapes of Steven Spielberg, steeped in the zippy, inventive intentionality of 90s postmodern commercials and music videos. Like if Tim Burton went to therapy. There's a tactile quality to his action. Everything is tangible. Real ships, real sets, real stunts, and real stakes. Every major action set piece has a fun little hook that makes it stand out, and it all builds with that signature combination of droll humor and thrilling adventure into a stunning Rube Goldberg machine of cause and effect. This fluid, building action works best in scenes like the hanging prison escape in Dead Man's Chest, which is a masterclass in intercutting. We get the crew of the Black Pearl's high-wire momentum act interspersed with Jack's more straightforward escape. And while we're impressed with the escalating stakes of the crew's hilariously perilous tetherball game, Jack's capture and escape is a satisfying case of setup and payoff. The very tools he used to plan his escape come to bind him, but do also eventually help him get away from the cannibal tribe that sees him as a god that needs to be released from his human form. Fun Tia Dalma foreshadowing there too. We build on that sense of cause and effect with the fruit counterweights and the yo-yo. Everything that happens has a purpose. Every action leads to a reaction. And this is possible because everything is shot with a sense of intentionality. This doesn't feel like a film cobbled together from masters and inserts and coverage for safety's sake, even if it was. Every shot feels planned, purposeful, and artful. Verbinski just knows where to put the camera for maximum effect. In sequences like the water wheel chase, we see that clever shot choice at work in the multiple perspectives in, on, and around the rolling set piece. The scene also continues that trend of propelling the story by intercutting simultaneous action that's all moving to a central point. But because the water wheel is literally moving through the other sprawling sword fight and chase, we get to see the effects of both action sequences on each other, which is chef's kiss. Mwah. Great visual storytelling. But Verbinski somehow tops himself in At World's End, which has the best set pieces in the entire franchise. You get the up is down sequence, where the clear, simple, clever action above deck is juxtaposed with the absolute chaos below. All of this plays against a jaunty fiddle tune from Hans Zimmer that heightens a scene that already keeps on building and building tension until it releases in a single, perfect, novel shot of a sunken but saved Black Pearl upside down, or right side down, depending on your perspective. And all of this heavily orchestrated action comes to a bombastic, intricate 30-minute finale of sword fighting, rain, cannon fire, meteorological phenomena, perfect CG, giant sea gods made of crabs, and a whole entire on-deck impromptu wedding. It's a half hour of pure release. Every unresolved plot thread leads to this moment, and the only way to solve it all is through the most expensive-looking action scene in recent memory. It's pure audiovisual overstimulus weaponized for popcorn-munching joy. And it's where the flip side of Verbinski's style shows itself as well. Set pieces like this could look hyper-artificial, but there's an organic quality to his action that complements the planning. He makes it look easy. Gore is Jack Sparrow. Is he making it up as he goes along, or is he the greatest director in the world? And there are so many signature oddball touches in these films that scream Gore Verbinski. As his career has developed, we've come to expect strangeness out of him. See the entirety of both Rango and A Cure for Wellness. But the Pirate sequels are where those seeds started to blossom. A lot of the weirdness in the film is around Jack Sparrow, yes.
I got a jar of dirt, I got a jar of dirt, and guess what's inside it?
But it goes beyond that. There's a loose, reflexive silliness to the whole affair, from the overly cartoonish portrayal of the Isle of Tortuga that replicates the exact nostalgic goofiness of the Disney ride, and the actual ride audio being used as the crew of the Black Pearl plunge into the depths of Davy Jones's locker as a way to signify that they're moving between realities. To the wild caricatures of the Brethren Court, for every self-serious moment of intricate lore dumpage, there's an equally undercut moment of operatic comedy or outlandish visual success. Yes, we care about the story we're telling, but we also want to have fun in this swashbuckling pirate movie for families and teens. Beyond even that level of good-natured silliness lies Verbinski's deep joy in using big studio money to create wild, surrealist spectacle. And the entire Davy Jones' Locker chunk of At World's End has to be the most gonzo piece of big-budget filmmaking ever put to screen. I don't think I can properly describe the almost perverse joy I had of seeing Jack Sparrow's 40-foot-tall nose on the big screen for the first time. The tension it created in the theater, the collective puzzlement and unease. To me, the mere knowledge that this was a thing that was possible, allowed even, in mainstream cinema, made me feel electric when I first saw it. The rest of the scene is equally off-kilter and lovingly bizarre, from Sparrow licking a rock that turns into crabs, or one of his many alternates attempting to seduce a goat. It mixed the surreal and the comedic dazzlingly. But it wasn't all for the sake of alienation either. While Verbinski does love to linger in that sense of the strange and surreal, he's using the heightened unreality of the afterlife as a way to reveal aspects of Sparrow's solipsism and selfishness through his constant self-sabotage and lucky escapes. It's yet another way to reinforce that central contradiction in Jack Sparrow's character. Is he a genius, an idiot, or a little bit of both? Speaking of genius, can we talk about Hans Zimmer? It may go without saying that Hans Zimmer delivers some great music for these movies, but you have to remember, the score to the first Pirates film is actively bad. Wait, come back, stop writing that comment, give me a chance here. I posit that you're just romanticizing the 3 or so themes that Klaus Badelt and Hans Zimmer composed together. Those are great, iconic even, but go back and listen to the whole score. It's tinny, overly electronic, and feels like it was written and recorded from generic action movie stock music over the course of 3 days, because, well, it mostly was. It was rushed. The mastering of it is unforgivable. It was written by 8 different composers at once using Hans Zimmer's music factory system, and it shows. It's both chaotic and bland simultaneously, and it's a wonder that there manages to be a few unforgettable moments of film music in this score. With the sequels, Hans Zimmer was in full control, and at the height of his composing prowess. He takes the things that work from the first film and beefs them up significantly. His passion for synthesizers gets mostly sidelined in these scores in favor of big strings and aggressive brass. Everything breathes more. The sound is more organic. There's mystery, adventure, romance, and personality. Zimmer's deft retooling of the audio landscape of Pirates adds an even greater variety of instrumentation, from the music box and organs of Davy Jones and the Kraken, to the squealing electric guitar of the final High Noon-style showdown. Zimmer brings a richly textured sound to the Pirates universe. There's variation here, yes, but there's also a greater coherence. In fact, most of the main characters now have identifiable motifs that carry throughout the films. Jack Sparrow even gets a lurching cello-led theme that's as drunk as he is. It's a proper film score now, and it rules. I can't really play any of it because Disney will smite me from on high with mouse-shaped lightning bolts, but play He's a Pirate from the Curse of the Black Pearl score, and then Drink Up Me Hearty's Yo-Ho from Dead Man's Chest. Ostensibly the same theme, but it's still quite the sonic upgrade. Perfect cinematography, great action, whiz-bang, eye-melting CGI, and a soaring soundtrack are all nice, but if we don't care about the people, the movie isn't worthwhile. The Pirate sequels are loaded with distinctive characters, all being performed with great aplomb by a well-cast and talented troupe of actors, delivering a complex, rich story that meets their considerable skill. These 2 movies get a world of grief for having a convoluted plot, and while there may be some truth to that, there's a joy to the density here. Where the first film is a straightforward theme park ride through the trials and tribulations of trying to solve the mystery of an ancient curse while surviving a piratey ghost story, Dead Man's Chest and At World's End are mythic tomes, fascinated with their own strangely compelling lore about Caribbean piracy in the early 1700s. Screenwriters Rossio and Elliott do a great job creating a world that's rich, layered, and complete, and the actions of the characters in the film have actual consequences for the world around them. They're constantly setting up these elaborate dominoes, and when they fall down, the payoff is enormous. The characters are all complex. Literally everyone in this movie has their own slightly different agenda that puts them at odds with everyone else in the film. This rat's nest of betrayal keeps the tension pinballing between a rotating cast of adversaries and helps to paper over any dull moments in the plot. And when those dull moments happen, as they inevitably have to, the exposition is generally handed to characters you want to hear exposition from. Gibbs, Barbossa, Tia Dalma, Pintel, and Righetti, characters that are already fun and interesting to begin with, so you're not bogged down with energy-sapping monologues delivered by doorstops. The whole story is stitched together with a powerful underlying sense of mourning. This is not the high time of pirates. This is the end of an era, standing on the precipice of a new age, and not necessarily a brighter one. The pirates represent the old world, danger, dishonesty, and thievery, but with a baseline sense of honor and the freedom of the sea. The new era is one of control, defined by the British Royal Navy and the East India Trading Company, the ultimate collision of government and capital. These films deal in the encroachment of capitalism to tame the wild land of the Caribbean through money and blood, and they'll do it by any means necessary. They want to tame it to make it easier to make money, but it's already been colonized once. It's almost like we're colonizing the colonizers at this point, but that's a different video essay entirely.
That's a sad commentary in and of itself. The world used to be a bigger place. The world's still the same. It's just less in it.
In that way, good pirate movies are also good westerns, and like a lot of westerns, they tend to center their narratives around the colonizers rather than the colonized. That's a conversation for someone smarter and more qualified than me, though. The Cannibal Island and Dead Man's Chest, not awesome. And much like The Reckoning coming for pirates as a whole, these films are also about people paying the price for making bad decisions with bad information. Cycles of power, control, and abuse that manifest in death and destruction. For instance, the original Brethren court binds Calypso, the goddess of the sea, to human form, giving control of the ocean to men, but in doing so also creates a power imbalance that gives rise to the East India Trading Company. Calypso gives Davy Jones the task of ferrying the souls of those who died at sea to the underworld in exchange for her love once every 10 years, but her capriciousness drives him to abandon his duty and terrorize the sea. Will Turner is trying to juggle his desire to free his father from Davy Jones with the knowledge that if he kills Jones, he'll have to take his place as the captain of the Dutchman. Everyone's running from mistakes or trying to avoid the cost that must be paid for what they want most, and nobody embodies this more than Jack Sparrow. Jack's choices in this film are limited and all equally bad. Serve forever on Davy Jones's crew, serve at the pleasure of the East India Trading Company, or die. Trying to find an elusive fourth option, any way out of that quickly tightening vice, is what drives a lot of his best moments in these films. It's not a simple motivation though, and it may be a part of the reason the pirate sequels feel convoluted. Jack literally doesn't know what he wants. His compass is broken. He's setting sail without knowing a heading, and his shifting loyalties reflect that. So yes, the plot is convoluted, but it's also considered, calculated. It's dense, but not impenetrable, and seeming great care was taken to give each character in this film something rich to add to the story, and it's heartening to see the cast rise to that challenge. There aren't really any weak links here. All of the side characters feel purposeful, well-drawn, and complete, especially the crew of the Black Pearl. While they were fun, effectively compelling villains in the first movie, they've somehow become a lot more lovable in the translation to heroes, or something hero-adjacent. They're still grimy and more than a little bit scummy, but somewhat more respectable. Kevin McNally returns here playing Gibbs as an archetypical pirate, the 30-year retirement party gold watch kind of pirate, the pirate they send the new hires to so they can get trained up. Where Geoffrey Rush plays the blustery swashbuckler, McNally is the weathered old sea hand, and he delivers lore and exposition with a lot of fun, salty conviction and reverence. We also get a lot of time with Pintel and Ragetti, the bumbling comic relief lackeys from Curse of the Black Pearl. They've been sort of retrofitted into the Greek chorus of the series, and they even managed to make Ragetti's eye a plot point with the whole Pieces of Eight rigmarole. Mackenzie Crook and Lee Ehrenberg play idiots better than just about anybody, but there's a surprising depth there. Crook in particular has this genuine innocence or sweetness to his performance that comes out at unexpected times, and he manages to get the big moment of At World's End, releasing Calypso from her human form after Barbossa's pomp and theatricality wouldn't do the trick.
I release you from your human bonds.
But Bill Nighy is the real standout of this movie, the MVS, Most Valuable Squid Man. Davy Jones is the best villain the Pirates franchise has ever had, and most of that lies at the feet of Bill Nighy. His performance is full of pathos, anger, and despair that can turn on a dime. He's an exposed nerve of a man, or Squid Man. The way that he just wails on that organ in Dead Man's chest, his sly little smirks, the way he sinks his teeth into his admittedly ludicrous but iconic accent.
A lost bud. A lost bird that never learned to fly.
He bellows his way across the screen half the time, and his eyes, good lord, his eyes. He realizes that a lot of his performance is going to have to be with the eyes, and he sells his gazes for all they're worth. But as much as Davy Jones is the villain in these films, he's not the real villain. Tom Hollander's performance as Lord Cutler Beckett is underrated. Where Nighy is a firecracker, he is resolved. Jones is fury, Beckett is banality. He seethes well, and he sells his effete privilege and ruthless scheming effectively. Though he's merely a conduit of the evils of colonization and capitalism, he's a highly effective foil to Jones once he gets control of the heart. And their animosity is electric. It's like watching someone poke a caged tiger with a stick. And all of this building smarminess and hatred leads to a truly spectacular death scene. For a B-plus tier villain, it's maybe one of the best death scenes of all time. Even though Governor Swan is basically absent from these films, Jonathan Pryce, who is an actor that's genuinely too good for these movies and the character he's playing, has one of the most unexpectedly emotionally gripping moments of the series. His distant, haunted, post-death Davy Jones Locker performance is one of the great one-scene roles. Also, a special shout out to Naomi Harris, who is going wild in this movie. She takes a role that could be actively toxic and turns it into something fascinating and surprisingly deep. We stand a giant sea lady who becomes so many crabs. Cast here is all playing at the top of their game as well. As far as the problematic boys club goes, Johnny Depp and Jeffrey Rush are having a ball here. Bringing back Barbossa was the best idea they had, and makes for one of the coolest cliffhangers in cinematic history, because Jack needs a proper omnipresent foil, and Will just isn't a good one. He's too righteous. Sparrow needs someone who can play the same games he plays more effectively, which is why Elizabeth works so well in Dead Man's Chest and Barbossa works so well in At World's End. Depp is teetering on the edge of genius and losing himself. What's working here is sowing the seeds for him inevitably joining what I like to call the Bruce Willis Center for actors who used to act good but don't care anymore. That being said, with each undercutting of the Jack Sparrow mythos, he sells the fundamental question behind the character.
Do you think he plans it all out? Or just makes it up as he goes along?
While these films may center on Sparrow a bit too heavily, they do a good job of shifting focus on him to explore the range and facets of Sparrow. Sometimes he's the villain, sometimes he's the MacGuffin, sometimes he's the hero, and sometimes he's 9 different versions of himself on a ship in hell, and one of those versions is a chicken. But there's always a sort of wounded humanity underneath all of the zany Keith Richards-inspired pageantry on display. By the way, that Keith Richards cameo in At World's End is genuinely terrible, and they shouldn't have gone anywhere near it. Jeffrey Rush is less concerned with any of the underlying humanity of Barbossa. He's playing a pirate captain, damn it, and he's going to chew and digest every little bit of the very expensive scenery here.
Calypso, I release you from your human bonds.
He was the highlight of the first movie, defined the way that pirates are going to talk in the popular imagination for the next 50 years at least, and he's very good here.
I assure you our intentions are strictly honorable.
His role may be less well-defined, but he rolls with the punches better than anybody in the cast, and he turns from understated to full-on hammy at the drop of a tri-cornered hat.
Dearly beloved, we gather here today. Today, the kisses of a mask, you foxy cur.
And am I just starved for genuine romance in modern blockbusters, or does this love story between Will and Elizabeth really, really play? There's genuine chemistry between Bloom and Knightley. Their wedding is one of the best scenes in At World's End, and not just because Barbossa is bellowing over it the entire time. You feel for them when they're apart, and you really buy them as the heart of the film, pun fully intended. When I was younger, I was pretty down on the Will Elizabeth stuff, but over the years I've come to realize just how vital the romance is to the fabric of the film. Without the context of human passion and stakes at the middle of all of this, it really could have just dissolved into overly complex lore, backstabbing, and CGI squids. And a lot of that rests on how much better the main performances from the romantic leads are here than they were in the first Pirates film. But Keira Knightley, wow! Despite all the attention Depp's performance as Jack Sparrow gets, Elizabeth Swann is the star of this trilogy. Her story is the most satisfying as she goes from privilege to fugitive stowaway squalor to badass pirate royalty. Her transformation into an action hero is seamless. She's outwitting the pirates at their own game, holding her own in epic sword fights, cracking jokes, commanding armadas to victory, and getting the guy in the process. She is so obviously our lead, and Knightley is just full of charisma and life here. Putting my cards on the table, or my liar's dice, or whatever, we should have given Keira Knightley her own action franchise. The fact that she hasn't been in anything huge since these multi-billion-dollar grossing films speaks volumes about how we treat actresses in Hollywood. Where's the Kiera-sance? Where's her Atomic Blonde?
Where's the colors?
Maybe I put too much stock into these films, but we don't appreciate what we have when we have it. That being said, Hollywood excess looks different in different eras. Some of this is almost certainly nostalgia, and perhaps it's a bit disingenuous to root for the legacy of two $300 million Disney movies like they were scrappy underdogs, but it's depressingly rare these days that movies with this much genuine weird personality break through to wide audiences. When was the last time a movie as weird as these made $1 billion at the global box office? The Last Jedi? Aquaman? And that's grading on a curve. Sometimes something just works. It's a right place, right time sensation, and it all goes stunningly right. Oddly, the tools of its own destruction are built into the DNA of what makes it so successful. While the original Pirates films are fun, swashbuckling adventures with an exciting and novel story, they're also an example of Disney leveraging their massive intellectual property library to try to exploit the love folks have for their theme parks. Ironically, it feels like a bunch of pirates trying to live freely under the boot of the East India Trading Company. Maybe one day we'll get back to movies like this. Either that or Hollywood will stop making films entirely and everything will be premium streaming shows and limited series events. Looking at you, Tim Allen, and whatever the hell that Santa Claus show is going to be. Speaking of which, check these out on Disney Plus the next time you get a chance. See Johnny Depp's enormous nose try to sniff out a peanut, and think about how you would spend $200 million of Disney's dollars. And that about wraps it up. But what about Pirates 4 and 5, you ask? Shouldn't we cover those too? Aren't they worth talking about? Well,
I'm disinclined to acquiesce to your request. Means no.
thank you all for watching Too Many Tapes. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon to get updates for when I upload videos. Am I totally wrong about this? Did the Pirate sequels actually suck? Let me know in the comments, or I don't know, tell me your favorite bizarre moment from a Gore Verbinski film. I should do even more Gore Verbinski videos. If you want to help out a small YouTube creator, consider donating $1 or more a month to my Patreon. I spend literally every dollar on this show. Your generous donations help me fund a capture card for my computer, so now I can import tapes at a higher quality and maybe start streaming some things online? We'll see, put a pin in that. If you donate $50 or more a month, you're Cammy, and you're the best. I could think up a fun category name here, but I'd rather just be genuine and say thank you so much for your patronage. I fade into the blackness, and your name fills the entire screen in letters that are uncomfortably large and possibly sparkly or shiny or something, depending on how much time I had to edit all this. Cammy also got to pick next month's tape, so you know who to thank/blame/think. If you donate $20 or more a month, you're Pintel and Rigetti, because you're a duo of greatness, my Greek chorus, and surprisingly vital to the plot. And you get to have your name in the credits in an enormous font, like NATO Kitsch. You can also be like Mippa and have your name in an enormous font too. For $10 or more a month, you're Calypso, and I release you from your human bonds. And your name gets to be pretty big in the credits too. And for $5 a month, you've got a jar of dirt, and you get early access to my videos. And a jar of dirt. Thank you all again for watching, and I'll see you next time on Too Many Tapes.
Take this fishwife to the brig. Right this way, Mrs. Fish.